What is going on, RotoGrinders? Welcome to Card Stock After Lock. Lock just went down tonight in the NBA DFS streets. Now we're talking sports cards. I'm here. I'm hosting the show. Normal rules apply. I'm just basically firing some questions, and these guys run with it, and I hand it over to the experts. We talked to the authorities. I don't know who authorized this. Four-man booth. We're rolling out a four-man booth this evening. Batting first, leading off. Maybe he's the one that authorized it. I don't know. Chief, Will Priester, we just talked basketball about an hour ago, so a long time. How are things in your world?
It's good, man. I'm just happy to be on. Jeff's one of my favorite people in the industry. I've got two favorite people, two people that I trust. Geoff is one, and my man Mikey B is another one. Prayers up for Mikey B. He had some health stuff going on. He's my breaker that I use. So these are two of my favorites. Two guys that I trust. If I've got questions, but I know I haven't hit Geoff with a lot of questions, but I feel like he'd be there for me. So I'm happy to have these guys on. Tambo, my good friend, obviously glad to see you, and glad to have Dean hosting. Hosting is a job, man.
You have to say all our names now. Listen, I'm not getting jealous or anything.
Hosting is a job. I don't mind it, but man, it's a full-time job hosting these shows. So super stoked to have Dean, steering the ship for us out in the open sea.
I'm happy to be here. The aforementioned Geoff Wilson from SCI. Of course, the promo code still applies here. 20% off your first payment with the promo code Grinders at SCI. We're not going to be showing off all those tools today. Apparently, we have on previous shows. I'm sure we will going forward. But today, we're just going to be talking about specific brands, specific sets as far as what we want to invest in. Geoff, it's been a while since we've crossed paths. Nice talking to you. Happy to have you on the show.
Hey, appreciate it. Thanks, Dean. Thanks, Will. And excited to talk to you, Tyler, as well. And looking forward to the conversation today.
What up, Tambo? How do you feel that Chief, it took you like 4 or 5 names till he finally said, I guess I like Tambo too?
Well, it was, a little bit of a downfall when he said, I only trust 2 guys, Geoff and Ben, and leaves me out. But that's okay. Will's my boy. I'm happy to be back in the booth with you guys here. I love chatting this stuff. We've had some good conversations. I missed the Top Shots one last week, but I did check it out thereafter. It was a great show, and then happy to have Geoff back in the booth here with us, especially to talk these brands. The man's got pretty much every brand behind him on the wall, so it's going to be interesting to get into these we can call it the box talk after lock. That's what's going to be today, so I'm excited.
Well, hold on. Let's clear this up now. Because Tambo, you're my boy. I consider Geoff and Mikey to be,
I know
the authorities. They've been around a long time.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, man. No shots fired there. We're good friends in this industry. Good friends.
Of course, my friend. Of course.
Yeah.
I'm just having too much fun stirring the pot over here. Don't mind me. All right, so we're gonna be talking specific brands. I hear a lot of names. Chief, you can go ahead and start. I hear, and again, I'm somebody that's been out of the loop as far as the card industry. I used to deal with it years ago, kind of sort of jumping back in. Just getting the feet wet. I do have a Top Shot. I know we're not talking that today, but I did hit the button 1,000 times, so I finally got myself a pack. That was really thrilling. And now I can't open it because tech issues. All right, but that's not about me. We're talking sports cards today. Will, hot brands. What are we looking at? What are the ones that we're isolating? What are we targeting as far as general brands, general sets that we're enticed by these days?
Well, let's do it like this. I did kick it off when Geoff hopped in, pre-show. Geoff's got these beautiful boxes of Immaculate back there. And I think that's a good way to bring it in, Geoff, because, just like everything else, you can buy a Maserati, you can buy a Toyota, and you can buy a Kia. You've got price points at each part, and I think that's a good way to kick it off because National Treasures, Flawless, Immaculate, those are going to be your expensive brands. Let's just kind of start there. I think, for me, I actually like Flawless a lot out of that set. That's kind of, one of the ones I like a lot. But in terms of Immaculate, NT, those are going to be your expensive ones. Obviously, I do feel like NT gives us some of those more beautiful patches, right? Those RPA cards, you get those and they're incredible pieces. When El Jefe was on, he showed us one, even a Chris Dunn, just impeccable cards. So I think, at the top of the line, let's start there. I think for me, like I said, Flawless is my favorite out of that set, but obviously you can't go wrong with some of the other ones. Geoff, I'll kick it over to you, my friend.
Well, I thought those were the high end, but this year Panini introduced a new product. Oh, it's actually not a new product. It came back after a while. They hadn't had it for several years, called Eminence, which was $25,000 or $30,000 for a box. I don't know if you caught that. Some of the breakers were breaking it. To me, totally not worth it. I actually didn't really like the design of the cards. I thought that they were nowhere near as attractive as Immaculate or National Treasures, or even some of the brands like Noir, that kind of thing. But it was certainly the high end of the market. Now, at the very high end of the baseball market, you've got a product called Topps Transcendent, which is also about $30,000 for a box. My feeling about Topps Transcendent is the total opposite, because I was part of a break recently where they were breaking Topps Transcendent, and I bought some slots because, of course, that's really the only way to approach that product with any type of reasonable budget. And I just sat there and my jaw dropped as I just watched them go through case after case of that product, and just the absolutely incredible cards that were coming out of it. That is a product. Topps Transcendent on the baseball side is a product that is legitimately worth, the super premium dollars. And on the baseball side, you've also got products like Sapphire, Top Sapphire, which is a really, popular one. You've got Triple Threads. You've got some others over on baseball as well. But yeah, in terms of basketball, man, I'm with you. National Treasures is your best one on the high end because those RPAs command the most value. Immaculate looks great, but on the secondary market, they don't do as well. Flawless traditionally was also not as good on the secondary market, even though the boxes were more expensive than National Treasures. Although I've noticed that Flawless cards have become a lot more valuable recently, so that's maybe starting to change a little bit. But yeah, National Treasures, Flawless, if you can shell out the cash, you can't go wrong investing in those sets.
What is the upside? Like, what are you fishing for? What are you shooting for if you spend the money on Topps Transcendent? Like, you're spending, what, $30K or so? What's the hope? You're going to pull a what? And how much is it worth?
Well, so Topps Transcendent, it's a little different than what you see on the basketball side. Topps Transcendent, a lot of the focus is kind of around the history of baseball. So you'll see in one of the breaks that I was part of, they pulled a booklet card that had an actual piece of Willie Mays bat from an actual game used Willie Mays bat. And then it had his signature on the other side. Of course, it was he hadn't signed the brand new card, obviously, but it was a signature from something else he had signed that they, interlaced in there. It was just beautiful. And people were saying in the chat that card alone would probably be $15,000 to $18,000 on the resale market. They had a Hank Aaron autograph card, which now, especially, I wish I had pulled that one in the break.
My goodness.
Rest in peace, Hank Aaron. And that one was, I think, numbered to 3, and it was, an on-card auto. All the cards, every single card in that set is low numbered, 99 or below type thing. Tons of on-card autos, both like the current day biggest stars as well as many stars from the past. So it's a really, really special set.
Tambo, have you jumped in this world? What are your thoughts as far as much if you delve in the baseball world so much, or your thoughts as far as these sets that are being thrown out? Do you have a personal favorite amongst?
Yeah, I think without backing up the Brinks truck, some of the stuff they're talking about there is, you got to find your spots and mix yourself in. I was actually going to ask Geoff, just cutting back real quick, curiosity, how that break worked, because, and before I go into that, I mean, just the status of it, or how you did it, how many people, it doesn't have to be the buy-in exactly how it shook out, but I know, like I've seen with National Treasures where they do like a hit draft, and that way it's a little bit fair. And for those that don't know what that is, or at least what I've seen, is where when everyone buys in, they randomize it, that's the order, and then you get to pick your card based on what you choose. They open up the cards, and then that's how you would break that out. How did that draft work for, the 30, or how did you guys do it for the $30,000 box of Transcendent?
Yeah, that would have actually been a really nice way to do it, but there were, I think, maybe too many people in for them to do it that way. So there are 96 cards in a box of Transcendent, but I believe, and I'm using round numbers here, I might be slightly off, I believe 46 of the 96 are essentially a base set, and then the other 50 are all autograph or low number, like really special type cards. And so what they did is they sold 50 spots, or I think maybe 51 or maybe 52 spots, because I think there was like a bonus artifact in the box as well. One person got the complete base set of 46 cards, and then everybody else got one card from the box. And so what they did was they first opened the entire box, so you saw everything that was out there, and then they essentially had a spreadsheet going of a description of every single card that was pulled. And then they randomized everybody's name who had bought into the break, and you landed next to one of the cards. So that was, of course, a extremely tense moment as you were sitting there wondering if you were going to land next to one of the cards. I mean, they had all kinds of crazy stuff. They had an Acuna 1/1 superfractor in there. They had a Luis Roberts, rookie card, number to 10 on card auto. They did a lot of really like high end stuff this year. And so you're like, it's a tense moment, like to see what you pop up next to. Unfortunately, I popped up next to a Wade Boggs number to 25 on card auto, which in a normal break, you would not be disappointed with a Wade Boggs on card auto. But when the Wade Boggs is inserted in between some of those other cards, and by the way, they had like a, Jeter auto. They had a who else they had? They had Mike Trout 1/1 in there. I mean, so when the Wade Boggs is inserted between those, I was kind of like, but oh well, that's the luck of breaks, right?
No, for sure. That's interesting. That's what I thought I would ask about. I think that's, if people aren't involved in breaks, it's definitely a fun way to do it, especially when it comes up to these types of boxes. For me, that's sort of what I was saying earlier. It's not, to go spend 30,000 on a box, like you said, can get a little bit crazier offline where you're going a little bit too deep. So for me, I don't know. I'm still big on, I guess the thing that's come around more, and I think we'll continue to see it as the market continues to grow, is this, the population report stuff. And so when I'm looking at it, you've talked about it in the past with Select over Prism. I just think you look at base rookies and there's things like that. We talked when you were on here last time, field level, courtside cards within those. I think those are great. And then you've got that opportunity to get those. That's, to me, is going to be much better long-term when we look at things. It's just right now everyone thinks, well, I got to have the Prism, got to have the base rookie to at least get in and enter myself into the market. And for me, I've been looking at ways to move those pieces right now and get into some other guys and some GOATs that we'll talk about later, maybe with, LeBron, Kobe, Brady, these guys. But, for me, I do like Select as sort of a mid-tier base level that I can just get around to still. And even through breaks, you can still get yourself in and get 3 nice teams. One of the teams is locked. They put 10 good teams in basketball into its own tier where everyone sort of ends up with that. And I'm good with that. I think that's a lot of fun. You talked about it, Geoff. We're in the DFS streets, a lot of sweat, a lot of anxiety down to the stretch there. And sometimes you don't hit the big score, but you still get something out of it, right? And that's sort of what we're used to. And that's you with the Wade Boggs. Great card in any other break. In that one, you're like, darn, I wanted something else. So that's sort of where I'm at, Dean. That's my thoughts.
Yeah, Geoff, I'm just curious. How does one purchase a $33,000 box? Do you get that straight from the factory? Is that something you just buy on eBay? Like, how does one even buy that? How does that happen? Where's that transaction going down?
Yeah, that particular product, they did a very, very low print run of. I think they only make about 100 boxes a year. They're almost all pre-sold to either the largest dealer, mainly breakers. It's mainly a breaker product because, most people are not going to buy it. There are some of the largest dealers, they'll allocate like a box or two to, and then the rest of them get allocated to the biggest breakers. So that's what they do. And that's also what Panini did with their Eminence product. It was also a very low print run product, same type deal, only went to top dealers and breakers. Yeah. But, to me, so that break that I did cost $450. And to me, yeah, you only got one card for $450 and the Wade Boggs isn't worth $450 in the resale market. But that was pure entertainment for probably, and that took a while to break, right? That was probably like 45-minute type break situation. And it was just, honestly, it was worth it to me to just like sit through it and know that I had a shot at like one of those other crazy cards that we saw. That was worth $450 to me. And so, and that's the great way to approach those high-end boxes. Breaking is great for that because even National Treasures, right? Like, those boxes are $4,000 or $5,000. That's a little hefty for you to break on your own, especially if you strike out and get nothing. But if you get into one of those breaks and maybe get into the break for $400, get one of the cards, and the experience of watching it broken and everything like that is a lot of fun.
Is that a world you jumped into, Chief? Because I know you're all over Star Stock all the time, but is that something you like to invest in breaks, or it's not necessarily for you?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, I only break with one guy. I break with Mikey. And look, that's not an indictment on any other breakers, okay? It's just a guy I trust. Mike is a guy, sent cards to get graded. We've built a good relationship. And so that's why I use him. I still think, no matter what business you're in, this is outside of, it's a relationship business, right? You build relationships with people. You have people you trust. And I've just kind of roll with Mikey. But I know there are other awesome breakers out there. He's just a guy that I trust. I want to kind of hop along because we kind of hit the high end. And, I've told you guys about my high end. But let's go to, this is kind of the bread and butter, I think. Geoff, Tambo, Dean, and I know you feel the same way. Panini, the Prism, Select, and I guess now Mosaic is kind of coming to the picture. That's on kind of the let's just go NBA, NFL. I do want to ask you about this, Geoff, included in that, about Panini National VIP, those gold packs. How does that kind of rank for you as well? But let's kind of go there, and let's go with those, what I consider the iconic sets. Now, this is what everybody wants. Geoff, over to you.
Yeah, I would toss Optic into that mix as well, right? So you got
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
Prism, Mosaic, Optic, and Select. What's interesting, if you watch the market, and in fact, we don't have market movers up on screen share, but if you were to look at some of the trends in market movers over, like, let's say the last 6 months, if you were to look at Zion's cards or Lucas cards or any of the more, highly transacted cards, you're going to see an interesting trend. And that is that, Prism, of course, remains super strong. It's the most popular, the most bought, the most sold, the most transacted, leads the market, in many ways. You're going to see for a lot of these players that Select has actually, from a percentage standpoint, outpaced Prism over the last 6 months. That it's getting more and more interest in the sports card hobby, and its prices are creeping up a little quicker than Prism's prices. Mosaic has actually really taken a nosedive. Like a Mosaic is, for whatever reason, Mosaic's prices have been falling, and it seems like the hobby is not as in love with Mosaic as they perhaps were right when the set, came out, when the new design of it came out, standing on its own, which is what happened last year with basketball and then football this year. And so it's kind of slipping. It's kind of slipped almost into fourth place out of those four sets. And I don't know if that's just, it was produced a lot. There's a lot of it out there. There was a big retail print run of it, that kind of thing. I'm not quite sure what the issue is there, but people don't love Mosaic as much, even though the designs I think are pretty cool. And then Optic's there. Optic doesn't seem to get, maybe as much buzz as the other three. But it's there. The hollows are certainly nice, and there are people who like to chase Optic as well.
Tambo, you have any preferences amongst those? Oh, go ahead.
Well, no, I do, but I like I said, I like Select personally before anything and everything. That's just my thing. It's so hard to get, man, and it's just awesome to see. I find the quality to be perfect, and I was gonna just bring that up. It ties into what you just said there, Geoff. Just ask you, but one, I've definitely seen quality control issues with Mosaic. A lot of cards coming out scratched out of the gate. Things that's not to put them down. Just it's like you said, maybe it's because they printed a lot. It's just one thing I've seen. The other thing I wondered about, though, this is kind of more interesting to me and maybe to those out there, is, okay, use football for an example. So NFL Prism retail just sort of dropped. I know we've had some hobby boxes, no huddles, things out for a little bit, but the Mosaic, like a Mosaic blaster box for football, was still selling for sort of the similar price to what Prism came out at retail. Yet to me, what made no sense was if you found, let's just use the, likely rookie of the year, Herbert, he was, $40-50 in a Mosaic card standalone, but he was $120 or $130 in a Prism, yet those boxes stay the same price. Is that just, consumers having a hard time knowing what someone bought it off the shelf for, that they can't get to paying more for that Prism box? Or is that why you think Mosaic could be dropping a little bit? Because now people are like, it's not what you paid for it, it's what's in the box. The classic old school, what's in the box? Yeah, that's what's in the box is what's the value. And right now a Herbert is worth like 3x Prism than it is Mosaic, yet the Mosaic boxes seem to be holding at those prices. Any thoughts on that?
I haven't looked at the boxes enough to know if there's any other factors that come into play. Sometimes you will see weird things like that with boxes on the secondary market because the configuration of the Mosaic blaster box, let's say in this example, has the potential to have more parallels in it than the Prism blaster box. So you sometimes see that happen where, like, a certain set, those blaster boxes are always going for more, and you might look at it and you're like, that's weird. But then it's like, oh, wait a minute, because those boxes, they've actually loaded them up with more special parallel silvers, whatever it might be. So I don't know if it's that or not. But what I do know is that, yeah, the secondary market is not being kind to Mosaic right now. As you said, like it's certainly way behind Prism. And in fairness, so is Optic and so is Select, but the gap is widening with Mosaic and those other products in a negative way. So yeah, we'll see, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, and let me chime in on that, Dean, if you don't mind. But that's kind of how I felt about Optic as well, Geoff. Just kind of, and kind of, me trying to invest and looking at some of the blue chip players like Zion, like Mahomes. I feel like Optic has kind of lagged even more than Select has, just kind of over the past 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. And so that's really had me looking at some of those optic paints, optic blue and yellows, optic greens, just to kind of get in. I think, if I'm not mistaken right now, let's say if you go optic on the base level, just pure base, I think you can get a Mahomes right now for about $3,000, maybe somewhere up in there, $3,000 to $4,000. And then you go up to select, if you're going, base or anything like that, I mean, you're probably 5 or 6. And then now that they're headed into the playoffs, if you're going prism, it's 8 to 12,000 easy just on base, I think. So what's kind of your take on that? Do you have a feel for why you think optic may have had, what I consider to be a kind of big lag behind, select and prism?
I mean, a lot of this comes down to personal preference, right? I mean, it's, they're all retail products, not select, but optic, mosaic, and prism are all retail products. So theoretically, you get a lot of them at retail. They also create the hobby box versions of them. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between those products. In some ways, some people will say that optic might be a superior product because it has on-card autos, which prism doesn't. And it also has the rated rookie symbol, which is kind of an iconic symbol throughout time, which prism doesn't. So, some people would say, well, optic's actually better. Of course, the secondary market doesn't really agree with that. So, it kind of comes down to what people chase and what people want. Prism has held as the #1 set in that category because of the fact that before Panini got involved in 2012 in football and basketball cards, prior to that, it was Topps and Topps Chrome. And so when Panini introduced Prism, it was introduced as if it was the equivalent of Topps Chrome. Like that was like and then Select was actually introduced as the equivalent of Topps Finest. So that's actually kind of how they try to equate them. And so people just naturally, associated Prism with Topps Chrome, and Topps Chrome always had this, kind of commanding price on the secondary market above Topps Finest. And so then Prism did as well above Select. And then later came along Optic, and then later came along Mosaic. And so those haven't had the same history. So therefore they just haven't had the same value. For me, it's Prism and Select. Like Tambo, I'm a big Select guy as well. For me, it's Select is 1, Prism is 2. Although a lot of people would tell you it's Prism 1, Select 2.
I do have my eye on the chat, by the way. What's up, chat? Feel free to like and subscribe. Do appreciate that. Turn on notifications. And also, I'm compiling questions, guys. So I just have my eye here in the chat. Anybody asking questions, we'll be asking them at the end of the show. I'm not sure if you want to move on to another topic here, Will, but I know you want to talk about unlicensed products, and I'm not sure if this is intertwined with the niche products such as Court Kings or Revolution. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, last thing too, Geoff. And Geoff, man, it's so great you pointed out something that I want to touch on. Just for me personally, because we're talking about personal favorites, let's go there since we're there. You mentioned Topps Chrome, you mentioned Topps Finest. And ironically, I'm probably the only person, I'm a huge Topps Finest fan. Not that I don't like Topps Chrome, right? But Topps Finest has been like kind of one of my favorites, like throughout the years, even from my younger days. And ironically, the card that I want the most is the LeBron James BGS 10 Topps Finest, with him in the white suit with the red bubbles. Like that's kind of the one I want.
Nice card. Yeah.
Right? That's the one I want. And I know everybody wants Chrome, and obviously I want to get my hands on the Chrome too. But it's funny because we're talking about Finest and versus Chrome, then we're talking about Prism versus Select, and we all kind of feel like, man, Select's a beautiful brand. It's kind of our personal favorite out of that bunch. And that just made me think about that. So personal favorites right now, for me, in terms of where I'm at, I definitely think it's Select. And then, I'll kind of mesh this with the niche product. I know we'll talk about that. But in terms of niche, it's definitely Revolution for me. I just think they're cool cards. Now, they're not that expensive, obviously, as your Chromes. But for me, that's like my personal favorite. Whenever those come out, that Chinese New Year, man, it gets me going. If I can get my hands on some Chinese New Year, Panini Revolution, I get real excited. So that's my personal favorite, just kind of niche across the board, and then Select, in terms of the standards.
How about yourself, Tambo?
Yeah, I'm big on that. Like Revolutions, Will put me on that a while ago, actually. So I've been stocking up. I got my SGA, I got my Zion, I got my Luca. I picked up a few actually, just because I do think it stands out. There's, you know, the Astro, the Groove, the Chinese New Year, whatever you can find. They're all really unique. And if you look again, go back to the pop counts. I'll keep bringing that up. I've talked about this in the past with daily fantasy, and people said, you know, in the beginning, if you just had projections, you could sort of beat the market out there. And I just compare that a little bit to cards right now. Why I think the market is just, everyone is all this bubble, this and that. And I'm like, no, it's literally just beginning. We're seeing all these other different things that are turning it to the next level. And I just think that's one of the things where right now people just aren't digging in enough to figure that out, that the pop counts are going to become more important the further we go on, where they realize, well, oh, then it's hard to liquid a market when there's 15,000 of this rookie card versus when there's 2,000. I saw a nice article the other day, and I know it's our cover photo for the show here today, of that Topps Chrome LeBron, and just how very few there are if you compare to LeBron's Instagram, for example. The article talked about with 60 million followers. It's like, you know, even if only you could say like 1% of those people can afford this card, well, not even that many can get their hands on this card. So it's like, it's just going to stay out there for as long as possible. So not only is it the iconic card, but then you have that low pop. I do think people look at more the iconic status than they do the low pop. And I think the low pop will start to become more popular. So Revolutions was a great example there, Will, that you just gave. But back to why I like Select so much, I just think it's just as nice, if not nicer. You literally can't get the boxes anywhere. It's so, well, you can, but you know what I mean? It's not at your Walmart, your Targets. It's so hard to get your hands on it. It's expensive, and for good reason. And there is so many nice cards. It's actually a box where I would spend $2,000 on it and not feel bad about not, you know, breaking it. As far as like going into a team break, I mean, because I think I'll do okay on the box. I like what's in there, and I actually have more fun getting every single card that's coming out of those packs. So I prefer that over everything else. And then, like you said, Revolutions, some other stuff you mentioned when you go back to Kobe's, LeBron's, you mentioned Finest, even Bowman. I'm okay with that. Bowman's Best or something like that, where again, it's just unique. You can get it for a little bit cheaper, but all these values on the GOATs, Kobe, LeBron, et cetera, are all just going through the roof right now. So I'm okay with picking up. I'll call them, I guess, Gary Vee called them alt rookies. I like that name for them. I do like, I like that. They're rookie cards that there's not as many of them out there. Not as many people are going after them, and you can pick them up still at pretty good prices while the rest of the stuff just continues to soar. And they kind of have to go with that, because as those price people out, you talked about the Topps Chrome today. Well, what is it up to now? 40,000 or something? Like, these are it's up there.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm thinking Canadian dollars, I guess, but you know what I mean? It's up there in money.
Oh, it's up there.
It hit 32 yesterday. I was watching it yesterday. And so I'd be curious if there's been any sales today so far, but as of last night, it was at 32, which is wild because, by the way, I was buying those cards in November for 10. And I'm thankful that I bought a couple of them, but that was November. I bought them for 10 and now they're at 32. So, I mean, yeah, that's quite the increase in less than 60 days.
Yeah, no, I love to see it. Jeff, what are some of yours? If you picked like sort of just a PC brand or something that you like of, you know, that's unique or different, what do you go after?
Let me plug this real quick, Jeff. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm looking at one right now. You can get a 2002 LeBron Topps Finest. This is PSA 10 for $9,000. And that's probably going up, right? The BGS 10 is 14. The 9.5 is 29. Like, it's crazy.
They actually they jacked those prices up from last night, because it's funny you mentioned that card. I was looking at that exact card yesterday, and I put in an offer on there's a couple of PSA 9s out there that I put in an offer on. But that those guys raised those prices since yesterday, because the I want to say the pristine 10 last night when I was looking at it, I think it was listed at 10,000. So that's listed at 14,000. They took the price up this morning, which, you know, understandably so. That's what's happening. Yeah, those are cool cards. In terms of current stuff, I opened a couple boxes this year of Status basketball, which I was not expecting to be anything particularly cool, but it was a great product. I mean, it's kind of like Revolution. It's kind of a value product comparatively. Yeah. I mean, nothing's cheap these days, but you can get hobby boxes of that for $250 or so, maybe a little less. And the cards are just like Revolution. They're just some really neat designs in there, cool patterns, cool look. Every card is kind of interesting and neat to look at. So Status was pretty neat as well. I enjoyed that. On the football side, I really love Obsidian. And that's, Those are great. And I mean, that's a little higher end of a product in the sense that you only get like 7 cards out of a box, but the boxes are like $400 to $500, which is a heck of a lot cheaper than obviously an Immaculate or a National Treasures or anything. And there's some incredible inserts in there, like tunnel vision and just some really neat inserts and then you've also got the color blasts in Obsidian as well, which are just, amazing looking. So yeah, those are a couple that I like that aren't everyday talked about products.
I'm curious if any of you guys, if there's any products for whatever reason you just have no interest in. Like, I'm not going to buy it. I'm not even looking into it. It just turns you off, and I assume it's more the fringe stuff. Will, is there anything out there where he's like, no, there's only so much I care about. I don't care about that particular product, for whatever reason.
Listen, I've talked about this. I think Geoff has learned my disdain for this product. It's these Prism draft picks. People, I've said it before. Don't buy Prism draft picks, okay? Now, look, if you've got a guy like I am going to PC LaMelo Ball, okay? My favorite team, but I'm not buying it right now. I'm just going to wait until they just bottom out, and then I'll go buy as many pink eyes. I'll build a rainbow of LaMelo, but that's because I'm going to PC him, and that's just personal. But in terms of actual investment, just please stay away from the Prism draft picks from an investment standpoint. To me, that's only collecting, only hobby, personal collecting stuff. That's the only way I would do it.
Yeah, well, I mean, DFS, you'll play guys you don't like if the price is low enough, Tambo. Is that like what Will's saying? He just doesn't like it. What I'm hearing, at least, is it's priced too high. It's a bad investment. In theory, it's going to come down at some point. How about yourself, Tambo? Is there some like a particular set out there you're staying away from at this point?
I wouldn't say that. I mean, what Will just said is pretty typical. Like I said, if you have a guy that goes to the college that you went to and that's what you want to get after, then by all means, you can PC it, do whatever you like. That's to each their own. For me, it's not part of my strategy or portfolio. I think for me, the bigger thing than just saying, forget this brand is more about, I just think a lot of stuff comes out, right? Like right now, someone asked in the chat earlier about this premium hoops. It's to me, it's like there's nothing wrong with it. If you want a nice cheap rip and you're at Walmart and there's a blaster box on the shelf and you can pick it up for cheap, by all means, go for it. Take that home. If you want to flip it and make your couple bucks, do that. If you want to open it, it's a nice cheap rip, go ahead. I don't like to, not enough things going on in my life as it is to try and find these next angles and all this stuff. I just focus on what I want to do with cards in general. And that's for me, when there's just so many products coming out, I feel like you can't have them all. So you got to sort of take your choices, what we talked about earlier. And that's where I'm at. So it's not a bad product. I'm not saying that. It's just not for me.
Geoff, you have a thought on that? Because it's just hard to keep up with so many different options. And I mean, I know this is your job. This is what you do. But like, is there any, you're just like, whatever reason you're less interested in?
Oh, well, I mean, sure, it's my job, but at the same time, Panini's putting out like 30 different sets a year of basketball cards and 30 different sets a year of football cards. And then within each of those sets, they're doing different types like fast break and choice and all this stuff. So it's very difficult to keep up with. And I would certainly recommend anyone coming into the hobby, anyone less experienced, just hone in on name brand. If you're looking to invest, hone in on the biggest name brand sets, the ones we've been talking about in the show today: Prism, Select, Optic. If you want to go higher end, National Treasures, Flawless, and just hone in on those, because those are the ones that, of the modern cards, those are the ones that are going to hold the value over time. On baseball, it's your Topps Chrome, it's your Bowman Chrome, maybe your Top Sapphire for a little bit of a better product. Those seem to have a lot of stability in the marketplace. I would, but again, if you're doing it for fun, then as Tambo said, then have at it, and part of the fun of sports cards is exploring all of the different types of sets and seeing what's out there. And so I enjoy ripping, different products. Yeah, I totally agree with what Will said from an investment standpoint. The draft picks products, really not a good call. Also, unlicensed products. I know that was on the list to talk about today.
There we go. We're already on it. Hit it up, Geoff. Yes.
I would not, so by unlicensed products, I mean companies like Leaf, or Sage, which are big companies that make a whole lot of sports cards, but they don't actually have the rights to the team logos. So, the players will be airbrushed jerseys with the team logo missing. They won't actually mention the team anywhere on the card. They'll just have the player name, no team logo. And those are not nearly as good on the secondary market. People don't really desire those cards as much. You also find Panini making baseball products, even though they don't have, again, they don't have the license. So they're making Select Baseball and Optic Baseball and National Treasures Baseball. But once again, those things aren't going to have as much value because they're just not, you know, they don't have the official team names, team licenses. So stick with the license stuff, especially for an investment standpoint. Again, unless you're just having fun with it. If you're just having fun with it and you want to rip Select Baseball because you like Select and you just want to like get a feel for the product, great, have fun. But from an investment standpoint, go with the licensed stuff.
Yeah, Chief, give your thoughts as far as unlicensed products, and put a bow on this entire conversation until we turn it over to the chat and knock out some questions.
Yeah, man. In terms of the unlicensed stuff, I think it's just for fun. Like, for instance, you know, Panini's going to have, you know, Prism Baseball, and you're going to get some Tiger Stripes and stuff like that. And, you know, like I said, if you want it for fun, you know, by all means, that stuff actually does sit on the shelf at Walmart. Like, I've passed by and seen 3 or 4 Panini Prism Baseball boxes sitting there, you know, $19.99, $29.99, ready to go. And if that's the case, you got to know people just aren't as interested. But I think if you want to do it for fun, hey, have at it. You know, $30, you know, to sit down and rip some cards and, you know, get some excitement in your life, have at it. But from an investment standpoint, I don't think the unlicensed products are the way to go at all. Geoff, last thing, I do want you to touch on this because this is something I've been trying to track. They're not going to be as popular, but kind of give me your spin on Panini, the VIP national stuff, the gold packs. Kind of what's your take on that? I've seen some rookies out there recently just kind of searching Tatum, stuff like that. A lot cheaper than his normal Prism. Still Panini, still got the Prism finish, but it's not, you know, it's just their gold packs. What's your take on that? And then we'll close it out with Q&A.
Yeah, so the origin on those packs is that if you go to the actual National Sports Collectors Convention in Chicago, you can get those packs there, and they'll actually run like a program where if you buy a certain amount of boxes from certain dealers, you can then like turn in the box tops and show proof of that, and then you get packs. And then some of the packs they only give away at their like VIP party, you know, and that kind of thing. So they're kind of low print run, you know, type stuff, which makes them exclusive and elite. But on the flip side, there's no way to get them other than if you're, you know, participating in one of these programs at the National or with one of the dealers or something like that, or unless you buy them on the secondary market. So that hurts the value of them some, just because there's so many collectors out there that aren't really familiar with them. And they're like, well, what are these? I've never seen this in my local card shop before. I've never seen this in my Publix or my Target or my Walmart before. Right. So, you know, I don't know. I don't think as a result of that, I don't think maybe they have a wide enough appeal where I would feel comfortable saying like I'm betting on one of those cards, because I just don't know that over time there's going to be enough collectors and investors who are going to chase them because they just don't know the history of them. But that said, they're nice cards. And as you said, some of them are definitely more affordable than some of their counterparts. And so maybe there is some opportunity there.
All right, a few questions in the chat before we step aside and get out of here. Again, if you guys are watching us live, we do appreciate participation. Ask some questions. If you guys are watching the replay, you're not going to get your question asked. Doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Either way, you can hit the like button, subscribe, turn on notifications, all that good stuff. This is probably a Will question. Will RotoGrinders ever do breaks? I know we talked about that. Is that something we're considering? Maybe, I don't know.
We'll put a pin in that for now. Maybe we'll do something, you know, fun, you know, for everybody that kind of hops on. You know, not sure if we're going to actually do the charging break or just kind of do a fun break. We'll talk about it. You know, obviously we're not in the break business, we're in the information business, but I think it would be fun. I know Geoff's done just some, you know, subscriber breaks just for fun, and I think if we did it, that's probably what we would do.
Geoff, your advice to find a good breaker. How would I find a good breaker?
Well, I mean, so as Will said, a lot of it kind of comes down to just like, you know, relationship and fit, like, and so he's obviously found that with Mikey B. I guess similarly, the first guys I ever broke with are Mojo Break. They've actually got a great podcast, and I always enjoyed listening to their podcast. They've got like a fun attitude, seem like just really kind of fun guys. And so as a result, I started breaking with them and thought that they were entertaining. And so actually I've done a lot, you know, a lot of breaks with them over time, but I've tried out a lot of the other big ones as well. I would say, at first, maybe go with a bigger name. Mojo Break's a big one. Layden Sports Cards is another big one. Those are, two of the more popular ones, because if the breaker, for a couple of reasons. First of all, just, the security of knowing it's legit and everything like that. But second of all, if you're going with a breaker that has a big following, they're likely to sell their breaks out on time. And that's a big deal, because you want to be able to sit there and watch a break. So if you're going to buy into a break that's occurring, tonight at 10 p.m. and you're buying in now, you want to know that at 10 p.m. that box is going to get broken. The bigger breakers like Layden and Mojo Break, it's almost always going to get broken at 10 p.m. because it's going to sell out. But some of the smaller breakers, it won't sell out. And then they'll be like, all right, we're going to hold the box back until we eventually sell all the spots. But then you may not end up watching the break as a result.
Tambo, you mentioned this in passing, and you may have actually touched on this. Your thoughts, overall future of Hoops Premium?
I just said, like, for me, it was just a kind of, and Geoff followed it up a little bit. They just make so many products. I don't know what the future would be of them. I think anything to do right now that you can attach yourself to this class, that's why they're doing it. And that's why collecting it wouldn't be terrible. I'm just saying, we just talked about 4 or 5 brands that are definitely above that. So I don't see a huge future for it personally, but again, it's to each their own. Just to click back on that previous question too, I would say, because I was newer to breaks for sure this past year getting into it. I would say watch some people first, watch some breakers and just watch it happen. You don't have to buy into the first one. There is an entertainment value to it and a trust factor, as Will talked about. You can try and tie those things together, but I certainly like breaking with guys or girls that are more entertaining, right? As long if there's trust there, it's a little more trustworthy and they're entertaining. That's a win-win for me, right? And then you can get both out of it. So, there's all luck of the draw in these cases. If they got the boxes you want to open, if they got the select box there and they got it there, I'm likely to go to where it fills fastest, who I can trust, and who's going to be more entertaining. So I would just add that, watch some before you buy in. That's the big thing.
You don't have to name names. Was there anybody you watched? You're like, nah, not this person, not happening. And why?
I don't have anyone to really plug or go against. I just think, like, I did some on Facebook groups and YouTube and just following different sites people pointed me to. I kind of really I'm one of those, I'll shop around first, not just this impulse buyer. And that's been beneficial for me at least. So I'll just say that.
Anybody who wants this one. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you're on Instagram a lot, the coffee breakers are a new popular one that have popped up on Instagram. They're worth checking out for sure. I know those guys, they're entertaining. You got Jaspy's case breaks. You got live box breaks. There's a lot of good ones out there.
Yeah.
Any stats on how a Star Stock A relates to PSA? Who wants to handle that one?
Well, Star Stock, that's just their personal grading system for raw product, right? So that's the thing. Like, you got to know that if you're sending cards to Star Stock, obviously you want a Star Stock A. If you're sending in, raw product, PSA 10 is a graded product. So that it's not really comparable. It's just their grade on how they value what a raw card is for that market.
2 more you can step aside. Oh, go ahead.
And they said the Star Stock A, I think, they're trying to make that roughly the equivalent to a card that could get a PSA 10, but it's not graded as tough as PSA would grade it. So it's likely either a 9 or a 10 is what I would say. I haven't seen any hard data on it, but I just know generally the A's are considered either a 9 or a 10, somewhere in that range.
Yeah.
They're asking about NBA Top Shots. We talked about it last week. Watch us on the replay. We talked about Top Shots last week. Griffey Jr., buy, sell, or hold?
Man, Geoff, I was just looking at, I was on the app either this morning or yesterday, and I think Griffey's trending up too. I think he's in the 20s, but I think he's trending up last I checked. But I would say hold if I had it.
I hope it's a hold because I do have some, and that's my guy. So,
yeah, I would definitely say hold on Griffey. What's your take on that, Geoff?
Yeah, I'm calling up his 89 Upper Deck baseball right now. Like a lot of the classic players, a lot of the big Hall of Famers, those guys have just been going up. He's really been going up in the last, he's had another big spike here in the last 2 weeks, actually a pretty significant spike, believe it or not. His yesterday, his cards were selling for almost $3,000. This is his 1989 Upper Deck base card in PSA 10. Population on that card is 3,900. That was a card that was selling for $1,750 about 3 weeks ago, and now it is up almost to $3,000. So that's quite a jump in 3 weeks for a guy who, hasn't seen the diamond in 20 years. But that's how the hobby is right now, right? So, by the way, getting all of this data from Market Movers, which is our tracking platform here at Sports Card Investor where you can track the whole sports card market, card price movements of every single card out there, charts, graphs, that whole deal. And I know we got a special deal going with RotoGrinders that if you use promo code GRINDERS when signing up for Market Movers, you get 20% off your first payment, monthly or annual. And you can go to sportscardinvestor.com and click Market Movers in the main menu bar to find out all about that.
Go and get it, people. Go get it.
One more. What do you guys think about Panini getting an exclusive deal with UFC?
I'm going to let Geoff take this one. Geoff, I know you're already on it. I've seen. Go ahead, Geoff.
I was excited to see that today. I did an episode on my Sports Card Investor channel week before last about how we at Sports Card Investor think that UFC cards are in a prime position to really take off in terms of price and popularity. And the fact that, so up until now, they've been Topps Chrome have been, the big cards in recent years that people have been going after. And the fact that it's going to actually transition to Panini, I think that's a great thing, because I think just the fact they're getting that publicity, now you're going to have the Prism name associated with UFC cards. So what that's going to do is that's going to all of a sudden make UFC cards more popular. Just the fact that it's going to have Prism associated with it, and maybe Select, and who knows. But then on top of that, what I then think will happen is then people will be like, there's going to be a whole new batch of people that are going to be like, oh wait, there are UFC cards. This is a thing. And then they're going to go back and want to go back and go buy all the old Topps Chrome ones. So I think that's good news for the UFC market. I think it's going to be on the rise.
Well, that's what I'm doing, Geoff. Just so you know, I'm one of those people that's like, now is the time for me to get on these Topps ones before everybody else does. That's where I'm at.
My total novice opinion is that, like, it feels like those cards, the values will fluctuate so much because they fight once every 4 or 5, 6 months, and if they win or they lose, that's going to dictate their value for the next so many months. I don't know. Or maybe you buy them up and anticipate a victory or an upset or something like that, or sell off and think you're going to lose. But just that's my first thought on that. As far, I feel like those cards are going to be volatile for better or for worse. All right, we got to go, but we do appreciate you guys watching. Hit like, subscribe, tell us in the comment section what you guys want to hear in shows going forward. We're going to do our best to listen to that. Let's get some plugs in. Tambo, I know you got golf tonight. What else is going on in your world?
Yeah, that's it, man. Right now, football's shutting down, so we got the Super Bowl coming up. Excited for that, from a personal standpoint, just watching the game and then doing a little bit more content on it. But yeah, all PGA DFS right now, man. About to record a show right after this. Got a show Wednesday nights. I do the Saturday night round 4 showdown show, and then, of course, follow me on Twitter at ToeTag and Tambo. Hit me up there if you have any other questions.
Chief?
Yeah, man. Articles will be out tomorrow. This was from my boy Brennan Ruby. Brennan will be on with us next month. It's a cardboard calculus article. You don't want to miss this one. Kind of talking about Prism population, that's kind of been on the rise, talking about the silver, talking about some of the different variations that, have a lot lower pop count than even some of the silver or the base. Incredible article. That article is going to be coming out real soon. You don't want to miss. He's got a real good feature on Trae Young.
Geoff, close us out.
Yeah, well, just excited about the month ahead and seeing if these incredible price rises are going to continue to be built on. It's going to be interesting. By the time we get back together here, I'm going to join the show in another couple of weeks. I mean, I don't know. Cards might be 10x where they are today. Depends what's going on. But yeah, check me out on sportscardinvestor.com, Sports Card Investor on YouTube. And then while you're on sportscardinvestor.com, check out the Market Movers product. It's awesome, and you get 20% off your first payment by using promo code GRINDERS.
All right, thanks you guys for watching. I was Dean, that was Geoff, that was Tambo, that was Will. This was Card Stock After Luck. We're out of here.